right, welcome back, everybody. I'm Chad and Nichols, IFBB Pro, NPC Judge, and I have my wife here, Natalie Nichols, who is also an IFBB Pro and NPC Judge as well. And this is going to be our second video in the series with Dr. Joe, and today we are going to talk about cardio, how to use it, how not to use it, and you know what? Let's just dive right in. So, Dr. Joe, you've seen, like we do, people come to you, maybe new clients ready to start prep, and they're already doing 60, 100, 200 minutes of cardio in the off season. That's a problem I'm seeing a lot around this in the industry, and I'd really like to tackle that head on. So what are your thoughts on how to use cardio appropriately? And you can break it down by either off season, prep, or both, whichever one you want to start with. So on to you.
Yeah, well, it's been an interesting cycle in that maybe 20 years ago, everybody, as soon as they started prep, just did an hour of cardio every day or 2 hours of cardio every day. I mean, those were kind of the only metrics we threw out there. Hey, are you up to double cardios yet, or this or that? And there's just never less than an hour. It just didn't exist. And I started looking at some of the physiology and some of the research and showing that around 30 minutes, you really hit a strong wall. A law of diminishing returns comes into effect where you start resynthesizing body fat and your metabolism just kind of slows down a little bit to protect it. And so I started looking at, okay, what's the most optimal way to do cardio, optimal intensity? And this was about the time I started writing some articles way back in the day saying, hey, why are we doing fasted cardio with just a little bit of food? You can actually have so much more work output, thermogenesis. You're going to instantly see that you're sweating sooner, your heart rate's faster. For the cost of maybe 50 calories, you're probably going to burn an extra 100 calories and then have this ongoing effect afterwards. And so I started doing less and less cardio, a little bit more intensity, and that created the high intensity era. So
love that.
Yeah, and I mean, not more than a couple years after that, all of a sudden people were measuring cardio in wind gates, like how many wind gates are you doing, or how many intervals, and so then of course everything went that way, and everybody started getting almost angry about low intensity. So I had to come back in and say, wait a second, there's still a place for low intensity activity, just burning an extra couple hundred calories. It may not be your best bet. But right now, the way I break it all up is, first of all, just with the understanding that everything is a tool that we can use.
Right, yes.
High intensity cardio, and I mean high intensity, like all out, not even glycolytic energy system, but anaerobic energy, like a 100-meter sprint, 50-meter sprint, repetitively. So this is where you get into high intensity intervals. That eventually gets you through all of the energy systems. And so nothing has been studied to give you a better epinephrine output, growth hormone output for hours afterward. So you cannot get anything more effective at fat loss. And there's even some anabolic advantage to that you're really creating that growth hormone and testosterone response. But you can't do too much of it because it's so exhausting. I mean, you're literally doing a leg workout every time you do a cardio like that.
Yes, you really do resistance training, basically.
Yeah, I personally throw 2 or 3 of those in a week, and then I'll say, okay, and our baseline may be some moderate cardio. So let's get 15, 20, maybe up to 30 minutes max of moderate intensity. And then if we have time to do some low intensity stuff, like if in your day, you can throw in a 45-minute walk or 60-minute walk a few times a week. So I look for how this works with a client's schedule, first of all, but then it's plugging in the major pieces first: high intensity cardio, then moderate, then low intensity. But it's all there to use for whatever a client needs.
I kind of take it, the approach is kind of like when we're doing our resistance training. You like to train against multiple rep ranges. I like to approach cardio the same way. You want to train against multiple different intensity levels, I guess you could say, same way, because you're going to get a little bit more effect that way, in my opinion. Plus, like you said, just if you go hit all the time, you're exhausted. And if you're lifting heavy and intense all the time, you're exhausted. But you can back those things down a little bit, still accomplish some goals, but not, wear yourself down too much. But yeah, and what you said about going all out, that's exactly the way, I mean, I was taught to do it and everything like that. And the way it was originally designed was your intervals, if you can go longer than 20 seconds, you didn't go hard enough.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you've got to really up the intensity more, and so to speak. So yeah,
that's hard to do.
It is. It's very hard to do.
Because you save a little back in the tank. Because
yeah.
you think, well, I'm doing this for 20 minutes, so I need to get into this. And it's like, no, man. It's
no,
like,
you go right off the bat. You go all the way, balls to the walls. And yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned about the anabolic response. I can tell you, my legs look best. Even when, you know, through contest prep, it was my second prep when all my cardio was basically high intensity. Now, I didn't have to do a lot because my metabolism was really high. I had about 2 to 3 sessions a week, about 4 intervals. But my legs had never looked better when I did that. The fullness, the cuts in them, and being men's physique, obviously I didn't need it, but I sure enjoyed looking at them. And I love the effect of them. So yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because a lot of people don't realize it. It's really, high intensity is really kind of like resistance training, so to speak.
And it hits your legs in ways that you're just not going to with normal linear weight training. I mean, go look at a sprinter's legs. Go look at somebody on the Olympic track.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, 100%.
Yeah. Well, I think that a lot of people really misunderstand what HIIT is because, you know, I'm on a lot of message boards with bikini girls and they will tell their stories of doing HIIT for like an hour and a half. I'm pretty sure, you know, you're not in the hospital, you're still here. So I'm pretty sure you weren't actually doing HIIT
more like medium or something
for all that time. So I'm at that point, I'm questioning your entire workout because that's just kind of one of the basics. And if you're thinking you're doing that, I have no idea what you're doing in the gym. So
yeah, Dr. Joe. So before we move into the next part of this, so just give what a typical high intensity interval session would look like for cardio.
You know, it depends on the apparatus, and I'm a big fan of cross training because orthopedically, you don't want to get in the realm of cumulative trauma injury and just constantly getting some kind of a tendonitis. So, you know, you can spin, you can be on an elliptical, you can do sprints on a treadmill. I've literally done it all. You know, even I used to love going to a track and doing sprints on a track. We had some implements, and so, you know, from tire flips and tire pulls, I mean, you can create an entire cycle. And if everybody knows the word like Tabata, that style of training where you create this little cycle of 2 or 3 different things, you do 20 seconds of this, 20 seconds of this, back and forth. Cardio doesn't have to be just sitting on a bike or running on a treadmill. You can do functional body movements where you're getting some rope slams here, some, you know, burpees there, some ball slams, some mountain climber type things. So the more muscle tissue you involve, the higher your cardiovascular output goes. And so a lot of people can't even really get their heart rate up that high anymore on a treadmill or a bike because they're just too conditioned. You start involving more gross muscle mass, all calling for oxygen at the same time, you'll realize you're not in as great shape as you thought.
Agreed. One of our favorites was car pushes. I mean, you push in a car, you're barely going 2 miles an hour, but I guarantee you in 15 seconds, you're gassed, the heart rate is up, and you're wheezing when you come out, man. So I love those.
And you feel kind of badass.
Yeah, you do.
You know? and that's something that I've seen a lot of women kind of think they can't do it, but we used to do it with like our 9 and 10-year-old kids, and they were pushing the car. They did it together as a team, but we'd get them started a little bit. If our kids can push it, you can push a car.
And this was a minivan.
Yeah,
no joke, a minivan. So let's go change gears a little bit. So we're in contest prep now, right? And we're probably about 8 weeks in. Fat loss kind of starts stalling a little bit. Most of the time, most people, first thing they're going to do is reduce cardio. I mean, that seems to be the trend. I mean, granted, we can do a little bit with increase cardio. Now, granted, we can do a little bit with the nutrition if our calories are still high enough. But a lot of people miss the fact that you can actually do something else in your workouts to kind of get you over that little plateau. I mean, on your compound movements, if you're doing them, add another set. You can actually sometimes combine a couple of accessory works into supersets. You know, there are other things to do in your workout program than just going down the cardio way. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I love it. This is exactly one of the things that I do with my clients sometimes is just find a way to increase the intensity. And, sometimes we divide up training as this is my strength and heavy work, and this is hypertrophy or intensity stuff. I think it's fun to try and combine and almost like a CrossFit type movement, do as heavy of work as you can, but make it so challenging cardiovascularly that you're just creating a super inflated environment. So I'll give you an example. One time late at night, I just was feeling like I just want this massive workout. So I started doing sprints on a treadmill. So I would do 30-second sprints at like 12 miles an hour. So as fast as I could possibly go, immediately dive right into a hamstring curl, heavy, immediately into heavy squats. So you're talking about like 400 pounds with 2 reps. And then of course you had to rest for a minute because you went from a sprint to heavy ham curl to pre-exhaust and then right into that. I mean, that's dangerous, and I would not tell a client to do that if I wasn't there to supervise.
But we're getting the principle here.
But that was my heavy squat day. That was my heavy day, and yet I'm doing that kind of stuff leading into it throughout the whole thing, and I still got the maximum weight that I wanted. I just made it so much more difficult. Not only was that a great, cardiovascular play, but, man, think of next time you go to squat in a normal environment.
Yeah, I don't have something else to come from that, man. That's just a fantastic example of what to do. I got to try that sometime. We've done some of those principles like that, but that method you just did, I might try it, but she might be speaking at my funeral if I do.
I got a few. I'll slip you under the radar. We don't want these.
You'll come to my or give a eulogy at my funeral or something then?
We don't want these to get out to liability issues if we give away too many of the hard ones.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, good stuff. So last point here. You see a lot of people, you see all the time at the end of the prep, they're doing 400, 500, 600 minutes of cardio. And that to me is a huge red flag. I mean, if you're spending more time doing cardio than working out, you might need to kind of look at it a little bit. Now, I know in the final stages of prep, you may have to go that route to the extremes and whatnot to kind of shave off the last. But if you're seeing somebody out there 6, 8 weeks out doing that, that's a huge red flag. I mean, they're looking at some trouble. Thoughts on that?
My first couple years as a pro, I was so intimidated, and I was competing in an era where it just seems like everybody was crazy, freaky lean, from Dave Gooden to Rob Hope and Nigel Davis, all of these guys in the WNBF. And I overdid cardio trying to compensate. And the first couple years, I look back at those pictures and I was doing 2 hours of cardio a day or more. And I just lost so much size. I looked like I didn't even deserve my pro card. Then it became apparent that it's, time is one of the greatest variables. You have to give yourself enough time, make sure that you don't have to overdo the cardio. It's still all about building, as Natalie said, and recovery. And so I do believe there's just a limit you can go. And I will tell clients, you just cannot physically do more. You're going to have to eat a little bit less. You're going to have to sleep a little bit more. We probably even need a little bit more recovery, but you are at maximum levels of activity before you're just going to ruin it and you're not going to like the outcome. Yeah.
Anything on that? I mean, that's a good point to end on right there.
Exactly.
So bottom line, guys, I mean, really think about your cardio and prep, and the best way to approach it is adjust it in the off season. By the time you get near your off season, you want to have cardio down little to none. And a lot of it depends on your normal daily activity. But if you're somebody who's already about 8,000 steps a day in the off season, you probably don't need much cardio at all. Now, if it's somebody who's about 4,000, 3,000, could you have a sedentary job or something like that? Yeah, you could probably pick it up a little bit, but you want it as minimal as possible by the time you start prep. And a lot of times, if you do it right, you don't even have to do a lot of cardio in the beginning. Eventually, you will have to. But the point is, set yourself up right in the off season so you're not digging yourself a hole right before you go into prep. All right? Yeah, do you have a thought?
Yeah, I'll just add that we don't give out any awards at the shows for who had the toughest prep. They don't announce how much cardio you did.
Correct.
And we honestly have no idea. We only care about what you look like on that day. So make it as easy on yourself as you can.
Yeah, good stuff. Good stuff. All right, so that's going to wrap up this one today. Be sure to hit subscribe on here for you. So if you want to come and watch future videos, we'd love to have you. And be prepared. We are going to be doing another series here with Dr. Joe coming up soon. So stay tuned.